eventually you get absorbed in, and you are Sonic.
What's up, everybody? I'm Taylor Olmstead, and I want to welcome you back to No Repeat, a podcast where we pick 3 songs every week with no repeats and no do-overs to create a perfect playlist for every occasion life throws at you. Joining me are my co-hosts, Tyler Reed and Sean Evans.
I'm almost done with Broad City, and I've kind of been thinking for the past few hours, how am I going to make a phone wig for my phone?
She work.
What? Hilarious bit.
Oh, I understand what's happening. Not again. Not another opening bit that goes beyond me because I don't consume any media.
You just consume different types. You just admitted that you watched anime, which is why you're on Hulu now, which is fine. I totally understand that.
You're like 3 swipes away from Broad City, though. It's all on Hulu. Just go watch it. It's incredible.
Okay, I believe you.
But we're not talking about Broad City this week. Tyler, what was our challenge?
This week, we're trying to find the perfect song for the tasting notes of dark chocolate, caramel, and an oaky finish. Submitted by Alex Lockwood at 71DPI on Twitter.
It's a real shame that we don't have friend of the show Tess Stevens on this episode because she does actually experience synesthesia when she listens to music and she can taste it. She's been doing a music tasting series on her TikTok, which I will link in the show notes if you're interested in that sort of thing. But because I don't experience synesthesia, for me, I was really trying to think about those times where you're in a tasting note situation. You know, maybe you're touring some kind of alcohol creation facility like a brewery or a distillery, or maybe you're at a fancy coffee shop and you're trying a new coffee blend. Like those places where the connoisseur in you comes out and you at least pretend that you can taste notes and you can get the nose of a food item and you can really just have a visceral experience of your food, or at least pretend that you are to impress your coworkers.
Do you do this? Is this happened to you a lot, just out of curiosity?
Well, I have a lot of friends who the way that we hang out is we go to like breweries or wineries or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Typically
breweries because those are the ones that are close by, although the North Georgia mountains is also full of generally mediocre wineries that we will occasionally go to. And, you know, you kind of have to suss out the crowd. Like, my usual crew now, we don't do this BS. But I feel like when you bring new people on an outing like this, there's always that, like, one person who you can just see it when they, like, pick up the glass for the first time. It's like, oh, they're gonna be that guy. And they're going to tell you about all of the different notes and the tannins and all of that. And there's a place for that, don't get me wrong. I just don't feel like I have that kind of like understanding of how any of this works.
So we didn't really do that when you visited here and we went to the brewery. It was kind of like, is it good? Yeah. Would you like it? It always is like, that's kind of what the conversations roll down to now when it comes to tasting food. It's like, oh yeah, this is good. And then I look and think to myself like, is my wife like this? I don't know.
Well, that place also, I think, it was way too loud in there to have nuanced conversations about flavor profiles. But there's also, I feel like there's a difference in the kind of place where, like, you know, you're going and you're having a few things and you're like, yeah, this one's good, this one's not so good or whatever, versus the like, and now we're going to give you a flight of tasting glasses and you can swish some water in between each one to cleanse your palate.
See, I don't know about all that though, because like, I think the small perspective that I presume that Alex was referring to was probably more in the coffee spectrum but although I feel like tasting notes typically are bourbon, wine, beer, whatever, right? But like,
he's never had a fine chocolate.
Well, I mean that's fine too, but it was just sort of like because we actually had coffee the other day and he was like, none of this is actually real. It's so like because like his sort of like his intent was that it's like it doesn't like we had like a whole like debate about like tasting notes, right? And so like I was like, oh yeah, well if you have like an Ethiopian coffee, a lot of times they have like a blueberry flavor to them, like it will taste like a blueberry. And, like, he's like, does it actually, like, taste like blueberries? I was like, well, what does a blueberry even taste like? Tell me, like, what, like, describe what the flavor of like a fruit is without like describing the fruit again. You know, like there's a certain point when like flavor kind of is kind of nebulous. You know, things just kind of taste like stuff, especially like in coffee where like the notes are so like in the air. You know, it's like it's not gonna literally taste like this thing, but it's kind of just to kind of get you there. But I think regardless, I think for this challenge, I think the idea was both that we are describing the notes as they are, like trying to be like, oh, I'm trying to find a song that fits this, but also sort of like, what is a song that sort of has some level of vibe of like we are in fact we're picking a song based on the idea of tasting notes as a concept. So it's on two different kind of levels there. So that's sort of some things I was thinking about.
This feels like really meta, right? Like we usually come on here and it's a whole point of a playlist, right? Is to pick songs that meet the requirements. But this time it's like the challenge is meet the requirements.
The challenge is think about the semantics of taste.
Yeah. Right. It's sort of like every week we do the tasting notes of the challenge.
I mean, that being said, do you guys feel like either of you have a refined enough palate on any one thing that you can actually taste those differences?
I think you put two coffees next to each other, it's pretty obvious. I think if there's different single origin beans, you can tell them pretty far apart. Especially if it's like an Ethiopian is usually like more citrusy and more bright. And I would say there's definitely a specific region. I don't recall. My memory is I don't remember. It's been a while since I've had to care about coffee. Whereas like a Sumatran coffee is very earthy. And so like there's sort of like a very big like it's almost two different types of like drink altogether when you have them like right next to each other.
That's kind of how I feel about whiskey. I'm not like, I can't sit down and tell you the difference between like various scotches from different regions, even though like I did a tour and tasted different regions of scotch when I was in Scotland. But I know like which ones I like more than the other ones. And I can tell you like, oh, this one's a little too smoky for me. I like one that's a little bit saltier. But like, I don't remember the names or anything like that. And same kind of with like American whiskey, like beyond Jack Daniels, I don't think I could recognize any of them by taste other than I like this one more than that one. I'm
going to laugh my ass off this podcast when I say this, but I feel like my thing is pizza.
Okay.
Interesting.
Okay. Like I can tell. And it's, I mean, granted, anybody can call me out on this one and say like, well, it's pretty easy to determine what like blind taste test, what a Chicago pizza tastes like and what a New York style pizza tastes like versus a Detroit, right? It's pretty clear. But I feel like I really am able to kind of pick up on like what kind of oven it was made in and like what the tomato sauce is made of. Like if you have like a sweet tomato sauce or you have like a different, I also feel like cold pizza has a radically different taste than warm pizza. And I'm pretty adverse to cold pizza just for that reason, because I think in my head I have it in my mind that I want it to be like this. But like when I go to get a pizza, most of the time I feel like I really want a particular, like it's really weird. I know that people talk about this sometimes, maybe you guys don't, but like pepperoni size usually makes like a huge difference in how your pizza tastes. Like last night we went to Whole Foods and I had like Whole Foods New York style pizza has those big pepperonis on it. But when you go to like Donato's, Cincinnati Proud, they got those little skinny ones and they basically have that tiny little crust. So it really kind of cooks those things. We have a place here in DC called Lido and they do like a thick pepperoni that's about like the size of it literally is the size of $50. So no matter how much you cook it, there's always like a little bit of it that isn't cooked. Like it's a little bit, has that raw flavor to it. I think there are elements of that where I'm like, oh yeah, I can pull that out. Blind taste test, I could tell you like what it is. There's a lot of textures that give it away too. It's just not like coffee. I feel like it's a little bit difficult. You can say it with beer. If you're drinking a stout, it's a stout. If you're drinking an ale, you can tell it's an ale, or like a Pilsner. They're lighter. Coffee has always been difficult for me though. I feel like I like coffee and I can taste stuff in coffee, but it's really, I don't know, there's a lot of variables in coffee, right? If it's too hot and you burn it, or it's been too long, or the grounds are too fine, or you make it in a different way. I don't know. That's why I feel like it's like chemistry. It's really hard for me to pull that one out.
I think it's interesting that you mentioned pizza because, like, I think there's a certain, I feel like the things we had brought up is like mostly like drinks, and there's something about like a liquid. It's so much like an essence of something. It's like I feel like a pizza, or like just food in general. I feel like there's so many different things that you can kind of look for. I think in terms of like, you know, you can talk about the cheese, talk about the crust, you can talk about the, you know, the ingredients, but there's something about like a liquid that is just like it's so condensed and there's so much like ephemeralness to it. Like it's like you're trying to sort of like pull meaning out of nothing almost, but it's like I feel like when you have like a food, you're kind of like pulling different ingredients and you're like, well, this part of this cheese works well with this pepperoni, and so like I don't know, I think there's there's a lot of like pretension to like, well, I don't know, I would say that like I feel like for like when you're having like a dish, it's sort of like combining all of the different sort of like tasting notes together into one thing. You're trying to feel how it feels about it as a whole. And to be fair, we're just freeform jazz, baby. We're just talking about whatever. But I'm kind of like thinking about this for the first time. I'm like, oh yeah. So I guess like you can tell like when you make a good sandwich and like everything just like gels. But like as soon as you have like a bad sandwich where it's like you have the wrong bread. The bread is actually what does it. Like if you have a sandwich you get all the time at a place and they change the bun and it's worse, you're like, this sucks. I hate this.
See, this is why one of the things that I really enjoy about the Great British Baking Show, because they do this challenge on there called the Technical Challenge, where all of them have to make a recipe that the judges created. And then the judges sit there and tell them, like, you put too much yeast in this one. You didn't let this rise long enough. Like, very specific feedback. And I feel like that is, like, the true mark of craftsmanship. When you can just taste something that's, like, a recipe you designed, and you're like, nope, here's what's wrong.
Right. This is everything that's wrong with this. Yeah. There's a lot of drama in that challenge.
That's why it's my favorite one.
That sounds like the worst one. I don't want to be observed.
But let's talk about how we picked songs for this, because for me, I was trying to think of environments where I'm like thinking about tasting notes, and it's either in like kind of a winery or like a fancy cocktail bar setting, or it's at home. Especially during the pandemic, I was trying out new cocktails at home, and we were kind of building up a small home bar, and I was just trying to like learn how to perfect some basic drinks and like putting good music on the stereo, like songs that I could really just kind of like fall into. Because I feel like when you're having a sensory experience like this, like I want the music to be really enveloping, but not like overly exciting. You know, I don't want it to take away from the primary sensory thing I'm doing, which is tasting the thing. You know, I don't need Pantera when I'm like tasting my single origin coffee. I feel like that might be a little sensory overload for me. So I was trying to find something like not quite inoffensive, but maybe just a little bit lower energy while still being interesting. But what about you guys? What were you going for?
Probably something pretty close to that. I just thought about the notes and I tried to find a song that I felt had those elements in it. Like if I was going to describe the song, would it have those three components of it? And I kind of knew, I thought about it for a while, went through some playlists, and I remember the song. I just fall in and out of love with the song all the time. And by out, I mean it just doesn't come up on playlists as much, but I basically love the song so much. So I was like, yeah, this just felt right. So that's kind of how I picked it. Look for the notes, find a song that fits the notes.
Yeah, and I kind of had already kind of done that, where I said I kind of was looking for the idea of tasting a coffee, like being in a nice, comfortable setting, and then also sort of like trying to find different notes of the song that sort of reflect the tasting notes that had been described in there.
Well, who wants to go first?
Me!
You got it, bud. What do you have this week?
This week, I chose Buzz and Fly by Tim Buckley.
I'll float away like honey in the sun. Was it right or wrong? I couldn't sing that song anyway. Oh, darling, now I remember how the sun shone down and how it warmed your green smile when all the
So I first heard of Tim's work from actually a What's in My Bag featuring Robin Peckinfold from Fleet Foxes. This is one of the albums that he had recommended. He's like, I love this album. It's great. And I feel like it makes a lot of sense when you listen to this album, because it does feel like definitely heavily inspired Fleet Foxes in a way. And I feel like Fleet Foxes kind of would be like an adjacent pick I would probably choose for this challenge as well. I feel like this is a good sort of pleasant band to listen to. But yeah, so Tim Buckley is sort of known for sort of being like a folk artist that's sort of also infused like jazz elements into his work. And so this is sort of like right at the beginning of him kind of doing that. And I think one of the most interesting parts of this song and this album specifically is the vibraphone feature in this. And so I feel like that really kind of gives me a good sort of just comfortable vibe to it. It's really enjoyable. I think actually last week, I think I also had like a vibraphone or like sort of like synth sounds that were kind of like this that really inspired me. Anyway, but yeah, so I think for me, what was really exciting about this song was sort of like trying to find the elements in the song that I think represented the notes. And so like dark chocolate is sort of bitter and still sweet. And caramel is sweet, but it's mild and buttery. And so, like, I feel like lyrically, this song is sort of like happy and sad. This album is actually called Happy Sad. So I feel like he's experiencing joy, he's experiencing sadness and this forlornness for this love. And so I feel like that's kind of like a good sort of combination of those two notes together. And also instrumentally, it's sort of like, it's a little upbeat, but it's not too overstated. I think Caramel and Dark Chocolate are both pretty like, they're not really like punching you in the face a whole lot. And so I feel like this instrumentation doesn't really like really hit you over. It's not overwhelming, but it's nice. I think the guitar's great, and like I said, the vibraphone is just incredible. And so Tim's voice is really sort of like that oakiness. It feels sort of powerful, commanding, but there's a sadness and there's a passion to it. And so I feel like you kind of combine all those things together, and I think it just really makes for just a good, just good and solid. It's a little meandering in a way. It hits about 6 minutes, which I realize for the Sean sniff test, but I don't know. I feel like I think this album was sort of like him experimenting with less binary form structures of songs. So I feel like it's sort of like intentionally a little bit longer just to kind of play in the space a little bit, just to kind of jam out a little bit, a little more freeform. So, but yeah.
Yeah, the first time I listened to this, the length was kind of intimidating. Because it doesn't really, the thing we always say is, it doesn't really go anywhere. But the thing is, like, it's hard to say that about the song because there is so much movement in it. It's just different patterns kind of coming and going. Like, meandering, like you said, is a very good word for it. And knowing that little bit of context about where it is in his history is helpful for that. But on repeated listens, it really just kind of, like, gripped me in a way. Like, not like a tight grip. Like, I wasn't, like, on the edge of my seat, like, listening to every single sound. But it becomes kind of like a warm blanket. Like, it envelops you. You feel it kind of, like, surrounding you, and you go into this, like, relaxed state when you listen to it, which I think is fitting for this challenge. The only thing that I think I would have done differently here would be to find something that has maybe just a little bit more focus, I guess. Like, the meandering, I think it works for this song. I'm not sure about it for this challenge. Like, I'm kind of back and forth on it because there's a lot of times where I, like, forget I'm still listening to this song. Because, like, there's not a clear chorus or anything to, like, keep you back to it. And so I just feel like,
which is by design. It's actually intentional, I feel like, too.
Yeah, but I'm just like, I'm listening to it, and then my mind starts to wander, and then I get pulled back to it. And I'm like, oh yeah, Tim Buckley's still on.
Which is actually really funny that you say that, because I've probably listened to this album numerous times, just like hanging out. And sometimes I barely even recognize that it's like over or still going. It's definitely like kind of like I get that criticism. I definitely get that. And so like I feel like I also kind of picked this as sort of like this is like an area I'm kind of exploring. I'm kind of trying to get into like spiritual jazz, which is like a very like long form, like sort of like it's about the journey, you know. So I don't know. I feel like that's acceptable criticism.
Okay. 6 minutes is unnecessary.
Correct.
I think I like it. I get the notes. Let's start with the positives, right? Like I get the notes. I see why you picked a song, and it makes a lot of sense. And I don't mind that it's not like a chorus verse chorus thing either. I think it plays. But to what Taylor said, the marauding, that's not a good word. The meandering. Marauding
would be
whatever. I just say whatever. Making my own words here. It's my podcast. If you don't like it, you know where to go. Yeah, I think it needed some editing. Like masterpieces, it's hard to know when they're done. The saying goes, but I really think knowing where to stop is also the sign of a fantastic artist. Saying like, this is it. So that makes it a little bit more difficult for me to really like this song. But in speaking to the notes, I do get this. This is if this came on in a coffee shop, it's so inoffensive you wouldn't even notice it, which makes it right for this challenge. This was not about something that was supposed to be mind-blowing or worldview changing. It was supposed to be something that is easy to listen to. And I don't know, probably, I don't smoke cigars, but probably, you know, has a good cigar. It should offend people a little bit, right? Like I am offended by cigars. It's like, oh God, it smells like burning butt. But if you get a good one, right, it should taste good and it should have a pleasant aroma. It doesn't have to smell, you know, terrible or taste really, really cheap and bad. So yeah, great choice. I do expect more of you though. Like I think I had you picking something that was gonna be a little better. Like I don't know. I guess I get what you're going for, but you're Tyler Reed, and I feel like there's something better here that you didn't pick.
That's fine. I think, as you can tell, probably within the last like couple like months, I've definitely like diverted from like I feel like a certain kind of like thing I'd been doing. Like I feel like I've been like disco boogie, you know, like funky sort of stuff, but I'm like, I don't know, I'm kind of I think I'm just going through exploratory phase of just kind of like just trying to figure out like explore like genre that and like older stuff that I haven't really explored as much, and just trying to find, you know, trying to reach every corner as best I can. And so I feel like this is definitely like, you know, I felt like it's definitely worth a shot. I think it's worth listening to.
Yeah.
Tim Buckley is highly regarded, you know, so like you could say like, oh, whatever, this wasn't it, but you know, I enjoy it for certain reasons. You know, I thought it was fun. That's fine, Taylor or Sean. Sorry, that was a disaster. Just cut all that.
No, it was good. It was good.
All right. Well, my song is not as good as Taylor, so I'll go next.
All right, go right ahead.
All right. Okay. All right. Well.
So this week I chose Sophia by Clyro.
I think we could do it if we tried. If only to say you're mine. Sophia, know that you and I shouldn't feel like a crime. You know I'll do anything you ask me to. But oh my God, I think I'm
So I've probably been listening to this song for like a year and a half. I don't think it ever leaves my Spotify on repeat playlist because I just love it so much. I did not realize that this song was a TikTok meme kind of thing. I was totally unaware of this, and when I was looking for videos and I found it, I was like, this is hilarious. But also I think that this song is really great, and that's why I picked it. I like the guitars. I like the steady drum beat. I like her voice. I like that she does the I don't know what I see. This is the part where I kind of break down, where I'm like describing vocal performance and I just can't do it. But the end, when she does like all her little falsettoing question mark, forgive me if that's really wrong. But I just think it's really nice. And actually, I love exercising to this song. I don't know why it's like kind of a subdued song, but anytime that you get to like the pre-chorus, I'm just like ready to jam. Like put the power down. I think it probably came on today when I was riding my bike, and I probably loved it as much as I do listening to it right now. And that's what I mean. It just has my playlist for on repeat is kind of weird, and it has like a little bit of country and a lot of metal and some stuff like this. And it transitions so seamlessly, like out of Deftones into this song, and then back into like some metalcore thing. I don't know how. It's just maybe there's like an energy about it that I just love. But when I think about the vocal performance, it has all these really nice notes that make it rich and textural. And I think when I was the first couple of days of the week before I put this song in, I was thinking like, do I have one that's kind of nice? Like, how do I find something that's interesting? Because I didn't want to just put in like something like I thought about going jazzy. I really did. I was like, well, this just feels like it lends itself to having like a jazzy or like neo soul kind of song, right? Like it just kind of lends itself there. But I think what really put this song over the top for me was right before the bridge. There's like that really bit groundy part, and I was like, yes, this just does so good. And then there's a little bit of a chorus, and then you have that very Strokes-esque, like simple chorus, and it just, oh man, it just does it for me. I can just lush about this song on and on and on, but I'm curious what you guys think.
I have also loved this song for months. I have been wanting to pick either this song or Bags by Clyro because they're both excellent tracks. There's something about her voice combined with this production that's like otherworldly almost.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's so
like
ethereal. Kind of like a Lana, like a dancey Lana. Like Lana for the club. And I don't, like Sean said, I don't really know what it is about this song that makes it like so ineffably different. But it's just like, it has this feeling to it that I haven't been able to place for some reason. In the same way that like the new Lorde single is kind of playing in this same ballpark. Like, I feel like we're going to have Pop Girl Summer, and it's going to be like all stuff like this. Just like subdued, beautiful harmonies, but not like the disco summer that we had last year, but more like this kind of like real harmony driven pop. Like it's just all about vocal performance. And I'm here for it. I think that's great. And like Sean was saying, like when you talk about like tasting notes, I feel like this is a great way to do that because like every time I listen to the song, I feel like I catch another harmony or another little like trick in the production that I didn't hear the first time. Like it seems very minimal, but it's actually a really lushly produced track, and there's a lot going on here. Like, listen to this song on a good pair of headphones, and you'll hear it completely differently than, like, when you listen to it in your car.
Except for the part where it sounds like you took, like, your audio jack out just a little bit. That, to be fair, that part legitimately, like, messed me up the first time I listened to it. I was like, what's happening? Did my audio mess up? What's going on? But once you kind of get past that, you're like, okay, this is sick. Because there really is a really interesting way of using sound to sort of like create an effect. It's more of like a distortion, like a very specific kind of distortion that really kind of like, it's really satisfying to hear. I was like, okay, this is sick. But Clyro was also on What's in My Bag, and surprisingly, she had a lot of really interesting album picks. And it really felt like she had a really good, like, diverse taste in music. Some new stuff, some old stuff. And I think that really comes through just generally in this song and probably her work in general. That it feels like, I feel like there's, as we kind of said, it's kind of hard to describe kind of what's going on here. Because there's a lot of kind of stuff going on under the hood that just feels right. But isn't apparent. But it's like, it's even like right up for the beginning, like like a little bit of distortion, like right in the beginning of the guitar that's like just starting, and it's just like that's really the only thing that you hear, and then it kind of like goes into like the full instrumentation. Very, very 90s kind of sound almost. And I feel like you kind of take that, you kind of give it some like a very like house beat in the back, like just like a little like drum beat in the back, and just sort of like a really crunchy distorted guitar. It's great. And like of course her voice is, like you said, is sort of like ethereal. You're just, yeah, it's sick. I don't know if it like, I think it's definitely is, this song is also sort of like bittersweet in that way, because it feels like this is sort of like a forbidden love song. And so like I feel like that this sort of like kind of like is the kind of the bitter, the sweet kind of taste that I'm kind of looking for in the notes. And I guess, I mean, I would say the Oakey might be like her voice. We'll just say that. I would like, though I don't say it's not like the mighty oaken. It's not like, well, maybe, well, to be fair, I feel like I read up on the notes of like what an oak finish tastes like, and it's kind of like vanilla. And I feel like it's a perfect description because vanilla, it seems like the most like generic of all the flavors, but there's a lot to vanilla. There's a lot of the complexity in vanilla that I feel like we take for granted. And I feel like just like her vocals, we take a lot for granted, but there's a lot there.
I think I just want to say before we move on, it disappoints me a little bit that I feel like in looking for this song on the internet that it's read so like text literal.
Yes.
That it's just a love song, and I hate that.
I don't know. I mean, it always read to me like a forbidden love, like queer coming of age story. Like, I don't know that you need to read more into it than that.
Okay. Well, I think that there's something deeper that gets kind of lost when you're just like, well, she's young, she wrote a love song, so it must be like interpreted as just this like surface love song where she is finally realizing that she can't, the love that I feel is like not societally like accepted in society. I don't know. I just feel like I want to give her some credit that there's more depth and that she wrote a song that is beautiful in its subtlety than it has to be taken literally. And so I don't know. I just like read it for what it is. Read it for however you want to interpret it. But I just feel like that's why this song works for me, is because you can read it as the forbidden love angle, but you can also read it as like a whole bunch of different stuff. The older that you get, I feel like there's a lot of things that you end up finding out that you like that are forbidden and things like that. And it's just, maybe there's something that's appealing about that. There's something that is like dark and has different notes about it that are a little bit, they're not exactly, rainbows and butterflies and stuff. So.
Oh, for sure. I definitely feel like I oversimplified for the sake of that, but like, just want to say, for someone who's 22, these are very good lyrics. Definitely better than like a lot of the lyrics we grew up with.
Right.
So
that wasn't a call out on you either, but I'm just saying. I think we should give our artist some credit for the subtlety and the brilliance of their music that we pick on here, instead of just like interpreting it as what it means. Unless it's the chats, and then it's very clear exactly what they mean in their music. Look no further. But
well, speaking of songs about forbidden queer love, this week I chose Cola by Arlo Parks.
Now I don't really care, 'cause you're running around over there. Yeah, you're running around over there. And now I don't really care.
So Arlo Parks is a singer-songwriter and poet from the UK. This track is off of an EP that she released in 2019. She just put out her debut solo album during 2020. It's been getting a lot of buzz, and I have just absolutely fallen in love with her. I think her voice is similar to Clyro, like intoxicating and singular. Like you hear a song of hers and you instantly know it's Arlo Parks. And she's fusing together like classic R&B, but also like 70s singer-songwriter like Joni Mitchell vibes. It's got this little bit of hip-hop influence in the drums. But at the end of the day, like, the thing that really pushes it forward is that vocal, which, when we're talking about, like, you know, these specific tasting notes that Alex gave us, I feel like it has that, like, caramelly, like, they're, like, thick. You know, it's like when you're drizzling caramel sauce on top of something, and it just kind of, like, spills slowly over the side of the spoon. Like, that's how I feel like these vocals are delivered. Like, they just ooze out of your headphones and into your ears. And she's talking with this, like, incredible detail about seeing someone with their new partner and saying things like, "I'll miss your t-shirt in the rain, the one that makes you look like Gerard Way," or "Leave me to my own devices, it's better when your Coca-Cola eyes are out of my face." Like, ugh. It's just, the imagery is powerful, and the lyrics, like, deliver a specific story that's also very relatable. But man, that vocal performance is so good. And then just the real, like, unique instrumental underneath it that's not trying to be too, like, in your face, which, again, to my interpretation of the challenge, was like, I really wanted something that I could put on and I could, like, hear it in the background as I'm, like, experiencing this food or this drink, and it's supplementing the experience, but it's not taking the spotlight. And that's what I like about this song. Like, it doesn't draw too much attention to itself, but if you sit there and pay attention to it, you get a lot out of it.
Oh man, I hate you. I hate it. After I put, this is why I don't put my songs in early. We'll just talk about this and be real like honest with right now. When you put the song that you really like in first, and then like 2 days later, after you're like, God, I know that I won this one. There's no way that anybody's gonna get me. And then you put in Arlo Parks behind that, and I'm listening to it, writing notes about, like, what do I like about this song? What do I hate about this song? And then I'm just like, I'm just going to listen to this. And then I just start picking up stuff, and the YouTube starts playing through the rest of her and their music. And I'm just like, damn it. Like, I gave you my heart, and all you did was throw it back in my face and say,
how about this?
One up me. Right. Exactly. Take that, you know? So I don't know. I love it. I love this song. I like, to what you said at the end of your analysis of the song, I like that it's just a bass line and like a drum beat the whole time. I watched the live performance because I wanted to see, like, okay, what does this look like? Is there a band? Is it just a machine, like it sounds like in the song, or what's the case? And I almost appreciate it a little more when it's just kind of the machine, because you really do get to hear the spectacularness of her vocal performance and how it basically does have all of these elements of things that just over and over continue to make, like, they have just an impact on such a deep level. It's like, I could say, like, okay, it's pleasant to listen to, but I really feel like this is one of those songs where it's like, you would have to want to be offended to not like this song. Like, you would have to really find something that is of a bias that cannot be described in musical terms to not like this music or her music in general. So, damn you. Great choice, though. I cannot wait to listen to more of Arlo Parks.
I did a cursory glance around the internet space to see what people were saying about her, and I feel like one of the things people were like Pitchfork gave her mixtape a 6.7. Was like, well, these stories are really don't lead anywhere, and they don't, these. And I'm like, oh, shut up, just shut up. People are old, whatever. But so that being said, so I think that's kind of what some people would say. But I think that honestly, I think the part that I do like is is sort of the poetryness of the lyrics, and sort of it doesn't necessarily matter maybe if it doesn't, not everything connects together in this interweaving thing. It's just kind of they're beautiful words and they're said in a beautiful way, and they all just kind of work together really very nicely. So I really enjoy that. And so I feel for me, I'm thinking about the song is kind of like the chocolate and the caramel is in the lyrical delivery or in the lyrics, the vocal performance, and then like sort of the finish is the beat in the back, right? And so like I feel like that's and I feel like it's taking me a long time to kind of understand sort of like the appeal of like acoustic music in that way, and like to some extent like rap in that it's about like you can listen to the beat or you can listen to like the guitar performance as well, but it's sort of like to enhance, it's sort of to kind of keep things going. It's a facilitator for kind of like what's going on in the foreground, which is the lyrics that you're trying to focus on. And so like I've really kind of gotten more accustomed to sort of like listening for the lyrical stuff. As we know, I'm not necessarily a lyrics person as much anymore, or like I'm trying to be more so. I'm trying to focus more on that. And so like like I said, so I think this is really great in that situation now. And I do feel like I really enjoy how the relatableness of the words, as you said, to just like name check, like to say Coca-Cola, Gerard Way, like that was like also one of the critiques they had. They're like, they just bring up these proper nouns, and I was like, I think that's kind of cool. I think it really brings a lot of realness, a lot of intimacy to the song, which feels dumb. It feels dumb to say that, but like it really does. It feels like, I don't know, it feels like it grounds it in a place. It gives you that sort of like specific like sense of place. And so yeah, I mean, I talked a lot about like very like obtuse things, but yeah, I think this beat is sick. I tried to find a sample, but maybe it was just someone just performed it. Who knows? But I enjoyed it. I thought it was really sick, and obviously her words are syrupy sweet, and they're good, and it's great. Good pick.
All right, now it's time for notable B-sides. These were songs that were so close to getting picked but didn't quite get on the playlist. Anybody got some notable B-sides?
I only have one more, and I didn't pick it because it's Arlo Parks featuring Clyro, and I felt like that would have been too close to Sean's pick, but it's the track Green Eyes, which is a really lovely, heartbreaking breakup song. Highly recommend it.
I had Soft Stud by Black Belt Eagle Scout, a parquet court song, probably from Wide Awake. In a Good Way by Faye Webster. That was it. But yeah, I said mine in last, so I feel like Sean was like, you picked a bad song. And so I feel like I kind of saw what y'all were already doing. And so I really was like, okay, well, I don't want to just make this be three of in the kind of within the same zone. So I wanted to mix it up just a little bit.
I think the only other one I had was The Strokes Alone Together. I don't know why. I just really felt like that would just play to this a lot. And it had like the opposite energy. I just wanted because I felt like sometimes these notes are a little bit raw. Like they can be a little bit offensive. And I think about that with beer. In particular, I don't know why I keep coming back to the reference to beer, but like, I think there are a lot of people out there that just hate stouts, like anything to do with them, because I love them. I think they're great. I would drink a stout over anything most every day, because I like their complexity, and it doesn't really go out of style with me. So that's how I was going to go, because I think the Strokes are a little polarizing, especially now. I feel like there's amongst millennials, you either kind of love or hate the Strokes. You're like, they're posers, or they weren't hard, or who knows, like whatever. But
well, Tyler, if people want to hear your interpretation of flavors, where can they find that?
You can find my design illustration work at rudepets.club, and as always, you can find me on socials as rudepetsclub on Instagram and Twitter.
Sean, if people would like your beer recommendations, where can they get those?
Oh yeah, Instagram at TellySean.
We can talk about the notes and tannins of your wine or whatever on the socials. I'm at TC Olmstead. All these songs will be on the official No Repeat podcast playlist, and we'll be back next week with another episode of No Repeat.